We're live from New Delhi, watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Napakshi Purana, coming up in the next 30 minutes. US President Trump confirms the weapons already heading to Ukraine, but adds a caveat that Kyiv should not target Moscow. Ukraine says details of weapons not shared so far. Trump announces Indonesia deal after tariff threats, sets 19% tariff on Indonesia goods. Indonesia to buy 50 Boeing jets as part of the trade deal. Indian embassy in Iran issues fresh travel advisory amid rising security concerns, urges Indian nationals to avoid non-essential travel to Iran. US fighting weather vagaries on two different fronts. 2 killed in New Jersey as flash floods, heavy rain sweep through northeastern US cause widespread travel chaos. Wildfires continue to wreak havoc in Grand Canyon. Sci-fi office drama Severance leads the race for 77th Emmy Awards with a whopping 27 nominations. Batman villain spin-off series The Penguin grabs 24 slots. The White Lotus and the studio gets 23 nominations each. And after a historic T20 International Series win in England, the Women in Blue take on the Three Lions in a 3-match ODI series beginning on Wednesday. And on to the details now. US President Donald Trump said that weapons are already being shipped to Ukraine, but he also advised that Kyiv should not target Moscow. The statement came on Tuesday after the Kremlin charged that a new US plan to supply weapons to Kyiv, along with sanctions threats against Russia, would delay peace efforts. While Trump on Monday gave Russia 50 days to strike a peace deal with Ukraine, voicing exasperation with Moscow and announcing that NATO members would supply Kyiv with new military aid. He also added that has not spoken to Russian President Vladimir Putin since sanctions were announced.
NATO is going to pay us back for everything. In some cases, we're going to be paid back by countries of the European Union directly.
Are we starting to see those
But
payments?
we're always getting our money back in full. So we're not going to have any more investment to make. We're getting our money back in full. And if we can make a deal, that'd be great. We're saving 5,000 or 6,000 soldiers a week. They're Russian and they're Ukrainian soldiers. They're not American soldiers. And we won't have boots on the ground. But it's a shame.
Meanwhile, the European Union did not approve new Russian sanctions. It was announced by EU's foreign chief, Kaja Kallas, on Tuesday after a meeting with EU foreign ministers in Brussels. Slovakia has been blocking the EU's latest sanctions package until its concerns are addressed over a separate EU proposal to phase out imports of Russian gas by January 1st, 2028. Though EU foreign ministers welcomed US President Donald Trump's announcement to send more weapons to Ukraine. Kallas said that ministers will discuss Russian frozen assets during an informal meeting at the end of August, as member states have very different views on the issue.
We welcome President Trump's announcement to send more weapons to Ukraine, although we would like to see US to share the burden. America and Europe are working together, and if we are working together, this can put the pressure on Putin to negotiate seriously. The only way to get Putin to end this war is to force his hand.
Well, US President Donald Trump said that US would impose a 19% tariff on goods from Indonesia under a new agreement with a Southeast Asian country. Hours after announcing the agreement on Truth Social, Trump told reporters that it calls for Indonesia to not charge any tariff on American exports, while the US will impose a 19% tariff on Indonesian exports.
So we made a deal with Indonesia. I spoke to their really great president, very popular, very strong, smart. and we made the deal. We have full access to Indonesia, everything. As you know, Indonesia is very strong on copper, but we have full access to everything. We will pay no tariffs. So they are giving us access into Indonesia, which we never had. That's probably the biggest part of the deal. And the other part is they are going to pay 19%, and we are going to pay nothing. I think it's a good deal for both parties. But we will have full access into Indonesia. And we have a couple of those deals that are going to be announced.
Well, Trump outlined an Indonesia deal similar to a pact struck recently with Vietnam, with a flat tariff on exports to the U.S., roughly double the current 10%, and no levies on U.S. exports going there. It also included a penalty rate for so-called transshipments of goods from China via Indonesia and a commitment to buy some U.S. goods. However, the Indonesian government had yet to make any similar announcements on its end as of Tuesday afternoon. Trump also said Indonesia committed to buying $15 billion in U.S. energy, $4.5 billion in American agricultural products, and 50 Boeing jets. And on trade deal with Vietnam, Trump said that a trade agreement with Vietnam was nearly complete. Remaining in his character, Trump said that he could release details of the Vietnam trade agreement but didn't think it was necessary.
We have a Vietnam deal, and I would say that that deal is being pretty well set. It's pretty well set. Again, that's an opening of their country. They've opened it up. Just so you know, these were closed countries. They were wonderful people, wonderful leaders, very strong, smart leaders.
Well, the Trump administration said it has launched an investigation into Brazil's unfair trading practices. A statement from the U.S. Trade Representative said it will include the Brazilian government's policies related to digital trade and electronic payment services, unfair preferential tariffs, anti-corruption interference. The investigation seeks to determine whether they are unreasonable or discriminatory and burden or restrict U.S. commerce. Last week, U.S. President Donald Trump urged Brazilian authorities to end their prosecution of the country's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, accusing them of carrying out witch hunt. Also, U.S. President Donald Trump said Tehran was hoping to engage in discussions with the United States, but he's in no rush to talk with Iran, referring to U.S. strikes on Iranian nuclear sites last month.
Well, they want to talk. I'm in no rush to talk. They would like to talk. I'm in no rush to talk because we obliterated their site. They'd have to start all over. In fact, it's obliterated to the point that it's not usable anymore. They'd have to pick a different mountain.
Well, amid escalating regional tensions and military actions in Iran, the Indian embassy in Iran urged Indian nationals to avoid non-essential travel to the country, citing recent security-related developments. The advisory posted late evening on the embassy's official handle on X also asked those already in Iran to remain vigilant and consider returning using available commercial and ferry services. And U.S. President Donald Trump said that the U.S. Justice Department should release all credible information from its probe into notorious sex criminal Jeffrey Epstein as he sought to douse a firestorm of criticism from his supporters over his handling of the case. Trump is facing the most serious split of his political career from his famously loyal right-wing base over suspicions that his administration is covering up lurid details of Epstein's crimes to protect rich and powerful figures they say are implicated. Well, when asked about the case at the White House, Trump said that the Attorney General has handled that very well. He replied that Pam Bondi, who leads the Justice Department, handled it very well and it's going to be up to her. Trump said that whatever she thinks is credible, she should release. Well, a prosecutor asked Brazil's Supreme Court to find ex-President Jair Bolsonaro guilty of plotting a coup in closing arguments after a trial that saw U.S. President Donald Trump try to intervene on behalf of his right-wing ally. Bolsonaro is accused of seeking to overturn the 2022 election won by his left-wing opponent, current President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. The prosecution told the court that former army officer Bolsonaro and 7 others were guilty of participating in armed criminal association and had sought to violently overthrow the democratic order. After the defense presents its closing arguments, a 5-justice panel will decide the fate of the ex-president. It found guilty. Bolsonaro and his co-defendants could face up to 40 years in prison. And more than 300 electric buses were deployed in the Chilean capital of Santiago and the surrounding areas on Tuesday as part of a government bid to modernize public transport and reduce carbon emission. While President Gabriel Boric and Environment Minister Maisa Rogers led the ceremony, marking a major step towards cleaner travel. Rogers called it proof of Chile's efforts to fight climate change and meet its goal of zero carbon emissions by the year 2050. By March 2026, Chile plans to add 1,800 more electric buses. The project is expected to improve daily commutes for over 5.8 million people across the region. And now some weather updates from the U.S. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has declared a state of emergency after torrential rainfall and flash flooding wreaked havoc across the state. Also, the National Weather Service issued a flash flood warning statewide as multiple regions, including Union County, faced extreme weather impacts. The intense rainfall caused widespread travel disruption across the region's airports, highways and railways. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy said 2 people died in Plainfield when their vehicle was swept away by the floodwaters. And the ongoing Dragon Bravo fire in northern Arizona is one of the 2 fires that have been burning the north rim of the Grand Canyon since 4th of July. Well, a wildfire in Tinder Dry Forest in the north rim of the Grand Canyon grew around 50% on Tuesday after it destroyed dozens of buildings, prompting public outrage that it was left to burn for a week before firefighters tried to fully extinguish it. A spokesperson for the incident team said the so-called Dragon Bravo fire swelled to 8,570 acres after burning the historic Grand Canyon Lodge and 70 other structures, including tourist cabins and park staff housing over the weekend. Well, Arizona Governor Katie Hobbs also demanded an independent investigation into why National Park Service staff let the fire burn during the driest time of the summer in a botched attempt to reduce wildfire risks and improve forest health. In Colorado, a wildfire has rapidly grown to engulf nearly 4,000 acres, prompting evacuations across multiple counties on Tuesday. Lightning strikes on July 10th ignited the wildfire on the south rim of the Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park, the National Park Service said on its website. The park has been evacuated of visitors and staff and remains closed. Multiple wildfires are also burning across western Colorado, prompting evacuations, road closures, and a statewide disaster declaration. A nomination list for the 2025 Emmy Awards airing on September 14th has been announced. Severance dominates the 77th Emmy Awards nominations with a record-breaking 27 nods, leading a lineup package packed with genre giants. HBO's The Penguin, featuring Batman's notorious villain, snags 24 slots, while The White Lotus and The Studio follow with 23 each. Streaming platforms rule the charts as innovation and bold storytelling take center stage. From satire to sci-fi, this year's Emmys promise a thrilling celebration of television's evolving landscape. And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. Vibrant Ratha Yatra to commemorate Lord Jagannath's journey brings colour, kirtan and culture to the streets of Amsterdam. India's exports surged nearly 6% in the first quarter of the current fiscal year. And King Charles meets Indian cricket teams at Clarence House. Fourth test is set to kick off at Old Trafford on July 23rd. Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and moving on. In Uttarakhand, 8 people were killed and 5 injured when a jeep fell into a deep gorge in Pithoragarh on Tuesday. Expressing grief over the incident, Prime Minister Narendra Modi announced 2 lakh rupees ex gratia for the deceased and 50,000 rupees for injured individuals. In a post on the social media platform X, the Prime Minister's office stated, and I quote, "Saddened by the loss of lives due to a road accident in Pithoragarh, Uttarakhand. Condolences to those who've lost their loved ones in the mishap. May the injured recover soon." An ex gratia of 2 lakh rupees from PMNRF would be given to the next of kin of each deceased. The injured would be given 50,000 rupees, unquote. Well, the Unique Identification Authority of India, UIDAI, has urged parents and guardians to complete a mandatory biometric update for children aged 7 and above. UIDAI, in a statement, has emphasized the importance of completing the mandatory biometric update for children who have reached the age of 7 but have not yet updated their biometrics in Aadhaar. The Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology said that under the current guidelines, a child below 5 years of age does not have to provide fingerprints or iris scan due to developed mental reasons. It added that once the child turns 5, these biometrics must be updated, and the process is free of charge if completed between the ages of 5 and 7. If the mandatory biometric update is not completed even after 7 years of age, the Aadhaar number may be deactivated as per the existing rules. UIDAI has also started sending SMS messages to the mobile numbers registered in the Aadhaar of such children for completing the mandatory biometric update exercise. And a house in Bangladesh linked to 3 generations of Bengal's most respected literary and cultural figures is being demolished, drawing sharp concern from the Indian government. The Indian government stepped in and volunteered to help in repair and reconstruction of the property. In a statement, the Ministry of External Affairs reminded the interim government of the iconic status of the race in the shared cultural history of the subcontinent. The Ministry of External Affairs expressed regret over the demolition, noting that the house is a landmark tied closely to the Bangla cultural renaissance. It said the building could instead be restored and converted into a literature museum celebrating shared heritage. The ministry also said that the Government of India would be ready to offer support if such a plan is considered. The property, presently owned by the Government of Bangladesh, is in a state of disrepair. And vibrant sounds of kirtan and the rhythm of traditional drums echoed through the streets of Amsterdam. The annual Ratha Yatra festival, a centuries-old Indian celebration, brought a colourful procession to the heart of the city. Our correspondent Mark Limburg was there to capture how this ancient tradition continues to thrive today.
Today we're in central Amsterdam, one of the most iconic locations in the Netherlands, for an event that brings ancient Indian tradition into the heart of Europe. This is Ratha Yatra, also known as the Festival of the Chariots. A spiritual celebration that originates centuries ago in the Indian city of Puri, now held in cities around the world, and now here in Amsterdam. Accompanied by the chanting of sacred mantras and traditional Indian music and dance, The atmosphere is colorful and uplifting, but also deeply meaningful to those who take part.
Lord Krishna came to in existence, and that's how we celebrate Lord Jagannath Puri Yatra over there. Yes.
In a city known for its openness and diversity, events like Ratha Yatra offer a glimpse into the global reach of Indian spirituality and how timeless traditions find new expressions far from home.
This is all offered to Lord Jagannath, and so it's prasadam, that means mercy. So we give it to the people, so then they have mercy from God Himself. So that is transcendental food, you know. So it's wonderful.
Mark Limburg reporting for DD India in Amsterdam, the Netherlands.
And on to some business news now. India's overall exports rose by nearly 6% in the first quarter of the current fiscal financial year, reaching more than $210 billion compared to $198.52 billion in the same period of the last financial year. Well, the growth comes despite global trade uncertainties, including disruptions around the Strait of Hormuz. India's Commerce and Industry Ministry said both merchandise and services exports registered growth in the April-June 2025 period. The ministry said that if the current trend sustains, India could surpass last year's overall export performance. Also, the country's imports registered a decline by 3.71% to $53.92 billion in June, against $56 billion in the last year. The ministry also informed that the trade deficit of the country stood at $18.78 billion in June this year. And on to some sports news now. A high on confidence Indian women team will clash with England in a 3-match ODI series beginning on Wednesday. The women in blue made history by winning their first ever T20 international series against England last week. With the ODI World Cup on the horizon, Harmanpreet Kaur-led India will be keen to fine-tune the 50-over game. India won their last 2 ODI assignments in May. An ODI series win would further boost their preparations for the global showpiece. Meanwhile, England will be bolstered by the return of skipper Nat Sheva-Brunt and world number 1 ODI bowler Sophie Ecclestone, who have recovered from injuries. And King Charles met members of Indian men and women cricket team at the Clarence House in London on Tuesday. King Charles interacted with Indian captain Shubman Gill, vice captain Rishabh Pant, Jasprit Bumrah and head coach Gautam Gambhir. The King discussed England's thrilling victory over India in the 3rd test at the home of cricket, Lords. England have taken a 2-1 in the 5-match series. The 4th test is set to kick off at Old Trafford on July 23rd.
Batsman got out was quite unfortunate. The ball rolling on the stumps, and he was just asking us how did we feel after that, and we told him it was an unfortunate match for us. Could have gone either ways, but hopefully we'll have better luck in the next both the next games.
All right, that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on the DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.